What he did saved the business. At 2008 recession, which overnight everything stopped. There was no work.
You spoke about when you took over at Brandauer, there were some issues.
I can give you some real frightening, stark examples of Brandauer. When I joined the business, the average age across about 80 people at the time was 58.
How do you get everyone on board now?
I got a mantra, it's very simple, and I tell them, turn up, work hard, be nice. Those three things for the first 4 years of your career, and it all go well.
We've been talking a lot. There's been a massive movement for this industrial strategy.
It is not going to change anything overnight. But if we don't focus on the key areas that industry and manufacturing needs for the next 10 years, we'll be no better off. Arguably, we'll be a lot worse off. So for me, I want to see some traction and actually some pull from government and some push from manufacturing that drives this forward over the long term.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a specialist recruitment agency operating in the metals, engineering and manufacturing industry sectors. Enjoy the pod.
Hey guys, Pete and Mike.
The Metal Guys.
We're joined today in the pub by Rowan Crozier. I was just looking through your LinkedIn. Chair of the National Advisory Board at Mate UK, co-chair of the EBE Industry Advisory Board at Birmingham City University, export champion for the West Midlands, currently as well, member of the Board of Trustees at Support Staffordshire, and as I just said, in your spare time, you run a company as well, Brandauer. Thanks for joining us. You look busy. Oh, and you've got an MBE as well. So Thanks for coming down today. Just to kind of start with, just briefly, can you give us a bit of an idea of what Brandauer do as a business, and then we'll dig into who you are and how you kind of got there?
Yeah, of course. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm thrilled to talk about all things metal all the time, so we share that in common for sure. Brandauer, so they're a 163-year-old Birmingham-based business, founded right on the edge of the Jewellery Quarter in Newtown, making pen nibs. And today they export over 1 billion parts a year to 27 different countries worldwide. Don't do pen nibs anymore, but we do pretty much something for every sector. And we make the little bits that make the big machines work, is what I always say. I employ 64 awesome people. And really, they make Brandauer the success it is today.
How did you get involved in the metal sector? Was it kind of through family? Did you know people in it? Like, what's the kind of the initial story?
Engineering in general, I got into by accident. So at school, and I don't tell many people this, I was actually schooled in London, so I'm an honorary Bromwich. And I've been up here in the Midlands a lot longer than I was down south. But at school, I was always told you would be a good engineer. And I didn't really know what that was. But I enjoyed building Lego. I enjoyed fixing mechanical things. And really, it was that encouragement at school that got me onto a career path up to the Midlands, because I studied up in the Midlands. And the rest is history, as they say. First job was in an aerospace company. Second job was in metal pressings. A fairly long stint at an automotive tier 1. And then Brandauer, I've been out for, I'm in my 16th year at Brandauer now.
Now, Brandauer is 164 years old. I mean, it's quite nice because we're sat in the Thousand Trades, in the City of 1,000 Trades, opposite the Pen Museum. And we were just chatting before the pod started. If no one's been to the Pen Museum, not that this is sponsored by them, but there's some of your kit in there. You can make a Brandauer pen nib still within the museum. What's it like when you kind of get involved with a business that's kind of had such a legacy and you're kind of dropping into that business? Because obviously it's changed, but there is that bit where we see businesses like that they can fail over time, if they don't keep... if they don't change and they don't develop. So when you came into that business, what did it kind of look like? And were there any challenges right at the start when you stepped up to take that role?
When I applied for Brandauer, in fact, I was approached. I wasn't looking for a job at the time. And I met the MD at the time at the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce at a networking event. And he mentioned that there was a role coming up at Brandauer, and I'd heard nothing. I didn't know of the company or anything like that. All I knew was that the stuff he was talking about and he'd been involved with was interesting to me. It was small, it was challenging, it was technically advanced, and it got my interest really. Cut through to actually getting offered the job. As part of that process of meeting different people for interviews and things like that, you start looking, and it was important then, all those years ago, 16 years ago. First place you look for a business is on their website, and Brandauer at the time had what I thought was an awesome website. A lot of information, very impressive, professional-looking company. And then you turn up at Newtown, and it's not the nicest area of Birmingham, and everything was caged in, and it was like a prison from the outside. But you walk into the business, and they advertise what they do on the inside. And I just fell in love with the environment. It was state of the art. But did it have problems? A lot. Cultural, people problems, a lot of scars from previous recessions where there'd been cost cutting and redundancies. There was quite an issue between different departments being compartmentalized, pointing the finger when things went wrong to the other. Lots of cultural issues, I would say. But there was some foundation there, special foundation for me. It was a special business. You could see it, that heritage that you talked about, the Pen Museum, and us making pen nibs for the best part of 70 years before they got into diversifying, was something that twanged the heartstrings. And I was absolutely thrilled to be part of this business. And the carrot was dangled at the time that the MD wanted to retire and move on. So I knew there was a bigger job at the end of it if I came in and, got my feet under the table.
Did a good job, basically, yeah.
Yeah,
Do well.
Exactly. That was fundamentally, I can remember my first day, and the fundamental challenge that I thought I'd got, which would take time to resolve, was sort of all these sort of historical people issues, I suppose.
What level did you go in at to kind of?
So bizarrely, having spent my whole career being an engineer, the job I actually got was sales and marketing director. And I'd done quite a lot of sales in my last job. It had sort of got merged with the technical department, and I inherited the sales team, and ran that for about 4 or 5 years. And that sort of put me in a reasonable place to take on a very technical sell, which is what Brandauer was. But of course, as soon as I got through the door, I'd applied for a job as sales director, but I ended up with quality assurance, new product introduction, business development, account management, and supply chain. So I'd sort of got half the factory reporting to me at that point in time. And the bigger job was obviously the MD's job, which is what I do today.
And how long did that take you from where you went into to get to the MD's role?
About 4 or 5 years, roughly 5 years. And I had about an 18-month handover from the previous MD as well. And I've got nothing but respect for Dave. He did fantastic things. And what he did saved the business. At 2008 recession, which seems only like yesterday for me, but it was huge impact, huge hit. Overnight, everything stopped. There was no work. And he stepped up and made some very difficult decisions. And the business that I run today is there because he did that. But of course, with that comes a lot of other challenges that are created. A lot of people left the business. A lot of people were sort of scarred by that who were still in the business. That was the bit, is to reinvent the business from the point I took over to actually overcome all of that and get us working in an environment that is culturally right. And that's where you make the massive impact on your profitability.
Regarding when you joined to the point you took over as an MD, and it's like 5 years, how long did you know it was going to be a 5-year plan? Because sometimes when people come in, especially when you go and get in the carrot handle that you're going to be the next MD, and someone's saying, look, I'm going to retire in a couple of years, then it goes on to 3, 4, 5. I know you had an 18-month handover, but sometimes people go, actually, this might not ever happen. Some people's retirement plans change, and then sometimes people end up leaving at that point. Was there any time within that period of time where you thought, is this actually going to happen, or was it just?
No, looking back, I was young and ambitious, and I still got that ambition today, really. And it felt quite a long time. But if I think about what was said to me when I joined the company, broadly speaking, it happened plus or minus a year. It was roughly that sort of time frame. So I was fortunate. He knew what he was doing. He recruited somebody into a role that he thought could do the job, and sort of honed me towards that position, and stepped away pretty much bang on the right time. So it wasn't too bad. Any transition's challenging. It is challenging because I was going to do stuff different, but he encouraged me to do stuff different, which was good, and did support me through it. So
How do you think business should be looking at that now? Because obviously the one thing we talk about in manufacturing and within metals, and I suppose a lot of sectors, is an aging workforce, and bringing through apprenticeships was one element, but then we're almost got a gap in between now of skills. But for people to be bringing the next one on, obviously you're a success of a very smooth transition over from going, but not necessarily for MDs, but also you must have it in your business where you've got a really experienced maintenance team or a really experienced tool maker, and you're looking, going, well, we can bring an apprentice in, great, but it's only going to take us so far. There's still that divide in the middle. I mean,
gosh, yeah. I mean, I think they call it a workforce development plan now, which is a big strategic piece, often owned by HR, but it really should be owned at a very senior level. I can give you some real frightening, stark examples of Brandauer. When I joined the business, the average age across about 80 people at the time was 58.
wow.
And you do nothing with that, and every year you're losing people. And what we do, we obviously produce precision metal parts, but perhaps the more challenging element of that is actually making the tools that do that. So tool making is key to our business. And we had a sort of 5-year outlook where we'd have no tool room if we didn't do something. So people, businesses, engineering businesses, and I would argue it goes far beyond that, need to look forward and strategically put a plan together that has a form of succession at every level in their business, and prioritize the ones that are going to decimate your business. For us, it was tool making.
Yeah.
If we fast forward to today, my average age is 42, and that's about right for the business, but we are constantly putting young talent in at the beginning of their journey to make sure we don't end up with this precipice where everyone starts leaving and we end up with a gap. And the minute we have a period of time that, for whatever reason, we stop or we don't or we can't find, you can see that gap closing and that precipice coming back at you again. So fundamentally, that's the one thing I would say is look at your business, all the functions in it, map the ages, map what they're doing, how they do it, and analyze the critical ones, and make sure you've got a succession plan coming through. And apprenticeships is a fantastic way of doing that.
Do you suffer from any of these problems? Are you asking around your office trying to find a new supplier or source materials? Have you got aged or high-priced stock that you'd like to liquidate anonymously? Or would you like new business from customers that are guaranteed to pay you for your materials? If the answer to any of the above is yes, then you'll be pleased to know that the Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by SteelBuy. SteelBuy are a digital platform revolutionising the way businesses trade metal products online. SteelBuy offers risk-free trading where sellers are guaranteed to be paid, and automated processing including certification, logistics and invoicing. The network of vetted buyers and sellers is continually growing, and it's all housed in an easy-to-use trading platform accessible on any device. The online business-to-business marketplace for products is rapidly gathering pace, and SteelBuy are ideally positioned to capture the changing demands of steel buyers. So check out SteelBuy today and be part of the future of metal trading. Now let's jump back into the podcast.
How have you found getting apprenticeships in to your business with people who have got a passion like us three have about metals and manufacturing?
It's been hard, and it's a labour of love of mine, because I can see, like I've mentioned firsthand, if you don't do it, what the implications are. So Yeah, we had the skeletons of a apprentice scheme when I joined Brandauer, but it was churning out people who either didn't stay or weren't very good. So we started looking at training our own and having our own training academy in-house. But very quickly, speaking to my network and one or two people I trust who were in the educational side of manufacturing, let's call it, said how difficult it was if you're actually good at delivering apprenticeships, let alone trying to start your own academy and do it yourself. So we quickly made the decision that we needed to partner with the right training provider to help us reinvent how we deliver apprenticeships. And that's exactly what we did. We went to market. We tried out 5 different providers in the region, and we took an apprentice from each one. And that very quickly narrowed down. And I've got 2 that I work with now. One is Income Training over in Aldridge, a fantastic family-owned training provider. And the other one is Mate UK, who are a much larger national organisation, membership organisation for manufacturers, but also have apprenticeship provision on the side. That's probably doing them an injustice, but you get what I'm saying. And I work with both of them, and we work hard to look at how I think it's as much the learner's responsibility as the employer's responsibility as it is the training provider's responsibility. And that was the key for us. Identify those 3 areas of responsibility and then manage them. And that's what we've done. And I've got 12 at the moment, about 20% of our workforce, which stands at 64 total. So we've got about 12 apprentices on site, all at slightly different stages in their journey. Yeah, that's made a big impact. If I hadn't have done it, if we hadn't have done it, we wouldn't be here today. Quite simply.
And the retention of them's good. And
it is good. So again, at the time, and it sounds very common sense. When I started looking, why were the guys that we were bringing through, albeit perhaps not with the right provider or not, why were they not staying? And I have a bit more of a pragmatic approach to it. You see, I'm not too worried if they don't stay at Brandauer. The bigger problem is if they leave the sector. So we had ones that were leaving to go and cut hair or, work behind a bar, or I think one left to be a pest controller. Well, we have failed then because the sector don't get the benefit from, that 3 or 4 years training. So and again, why wouldn't they look at different things? They're 16 years old. I know when I was making decisions at 16, they weren't all good ones. So what we try and do is focus on that pastoral care bit as well. It's really important from 16 to 20, roughly, that you stay really focused on the basics. And you've got to spot unhappiness or they're not quite right and that sort of thing. So I got a mantra. It's very simple. And I tell them, turn up, work hard, be nice. Those 3 things for the first 4 years of your career, and it all go well. And if the stuff that if they sort of slip on any one of those, you can usually find there's some problem. They've split up with their girlfriend, or they've got problems at home, or I don't know, they're drinking too much, or whatever it is, and you can spot it. And we measure their performance against those 3 things, and it invariably comes out in the wash. So we went from a 20% success rate, we're roughly about 65, 70% today. And of that, I don't lose any out of the sector. They get offered
they get
big
picked up
jobs.
by
They get
other people.
and they get pinched. And I'm not overly concerned because I'd like to think I might pinch someone else that who's been through the journey and fill another role somewhere else, which broadly is the case. But I've got a senior management team with 5 people in it. 3 of them have come through our scheme.
yeah, which is it's good. It's good for business to have a success story.
Definitely.
I think a couple of things on what you've said there is, I think when we left school at say 16, we just had the whole world to go at and almost try minimum wage jobs to find out where your path went. And that either ended up in doing a bit in retail, doing bar work, or whatever it may be. You probably had 6 or 7 jobs and then you found your career. And I think the trouble for young people coming out of education even the ones who are like graduates, is going, I haven't really had to play anything. I'm actually being auditioned out in the real world. But we'll see it where we've had graduates who have maybe done 2 or 3 years, sending the CVs over, and they've just jumped around a little bit, but they're getting almost scrutinised like it was our CVs as older people.
Yeah,
And I think that is really unfair, because the wages that people get now, especially graduates when they're entry levels, aren't too far apart from someone with, say, 10 years experience, which is another minefield to get over. But I think it's allowing them to be able to express themselves, especially at that really young age, to go, look, it's okay that they've jumped around, but now they're looking for something. And as an employer, we've got to inspire them. We've got to almost like you just said, don't lose them. Don't lose them to the sector. We can't be losing skills. We don't want to be losing them so they become a barber or something like that.
No.
Another thing about the kind of apprenticeships, what we've found through speaking to such, and from a national point of view, is that you mentioned it earlier, Newtown isn't the nicest of areas in Birmingham, shall we say. And sometimes that can be a trouble from a talent pool point of view, because as you said there might be problems at home, or they're trying to better their lives, but you don't know what people's upbringings have been. And that can sometimes come in where apprenticeships can get a bad rep, because they become a disruption in people's businesses, especially small businesses where you haven't got the care and the support to be doing one-to-ones and everything like that.
Honestly, it is a big piece of work and a big piece of resource to nurture that talent through the business, particularly the youngsters. And your first point, I can really relate to. We've got to give them the opportunity to try before you buy, if that makes sense. So something we've introduced with our scheme more recently. So I think engineering gets a bad rap, full stop. So parents, teachers, and therefore kids generally don't see it as a career option that pays well, that is a nice working environment, or that, sadly, that tag still sits there today. So we have to relentlessly push back against that rubbish. It's not true. There are great careers, there are great companies, big, medium, and small, that are great places to work with great options. So let's part that and say that's going to happen. The other bit is giving the opportunity to see it. So what we've started, we did bring your child, grandchild, friend, child to work experience opportunity. And it started out with a bit of a harebrained idea from me to do it. And a few of the directors and managers in our business brought their kids in. It's now become a thing. I now do it loads, and they come in, and I'd say 60% of them apply for an apprenticeship after they've been, because they love it. More recently, we've opened it out to the schools. We're pushing the schools. We do quite a lot of activities around STEM to push back against that other rubbish that we just spoke about. And as a result of that, I started getting schools write to me and asking, can we come for a day trip and look round a real factory? And we do that. And then I get them to do a little competition, and the prize is a week's work experience at Brandauer. But I'm snowed
That's
under.
the prize.
That's the prize.
You get to come to work.
You get to come to work, but we do pay them. We do pay them. So that's
fair.
the other thing. So I made the decision, if they work hard for a week, I think they deserve to get paid for that week. I'm already oversubscribed. I can't do that many because of the size of our business. So really, I think it's important that everyone steps up to come back to your point, to actually give kids the opportunity to actually come and work in a real environment. If it's only for a week, we tend to, sometimes they stay 3-4 weeks. And then the apprentices, the other thing we do, we used to let them start on the day they start their apprenticeship, which is usually an October intake or a February intake. But of course, with an engineering apprenticeship, you're at the training provider usually. And we prefer a straight through 18 months off the job training. So they don't get interlocked into our business. So we found they're a little bit lost being out away from the business for 1 year to 18 months, and then they come back and it's a bit different. So we make them come and work for us for 6 months before they start their apprenticeship. Or 3-6 months, depends on what they can do. God, the impact it's had. They come in and they start working and doing stuff and meeting people, and it makes that transition when they finish their off-the-job training 10 times as smooth.
Do you think that's the reason you've had, because you said like 20% success rate up to over 60, do you think that is the main thing, before they start an apprenticeship, work, then apprenticeship?
I think there's two things. There's the work, giving them that opportunity so they integrate better and they get used to the environment, definitely. But the other thing is that early warning system that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Monitor them for turning up, working hard and being nice. Because if any one of those three slips, I guarantee it's for a reason. And usually it's one that might take them off the rails if you're not careful. So they're probably the two main things, along with sort of mentoring them and making sure you've got the right training provider and making sure they understand how it's going to work before they start. There's no shocks there. You're going to be off the job for this long. You're going to be at Incom. You're going to be trained in an environment that prepares you for working at a manufacturer, all of that stuff. So there's no shocks. So they understand it. Engage with the parents at the earliest possible stage. So we try and get them along to interviews, or at least have phone calls with them, or open days at the training provider. If the parents are engaged and understand and see the journey their kids are going to go on, you're on your way.
Are you finding it? Because one of the things that we, earlier on this week, Jacob and I were at Certec. In fact, it was the back end of last week, and they've been really pushing for getting the gender split. So they're really, really pushing to get more and more women into engineering. They're doing a good job of it, but they're still a way off where they want to be. How have you found, with your business, are you still struggling with that? How are you trying to attract more women into your business? And I think, look, let's be honest about it. It is difficult. We see it when we're recruiting. If we put engineering roles, the amount of women that we get applying, it's minute when you look at the split of people that are applying for job roles. So what have you done or what are you trying to do to help, or to make your business specifically more attractive to women that might be looking for a job and a career?
So very relatable topic. We are probably 22-23% female male split in Brandauer, and that's after 15 years of work to try and change that. We had probably 10% when I started, and it is hard. And we've done a number of things to try and sort of redress that balance, I suppose. The most recent thing I've done, which we'll see if it has an impact, I actually had an independent review of our recruitment collateral, if we want to call it that, done by a woman. And it was very evident that men are writing all the job descriptions, putting the adverts out. So our website even was reported as being very male, but also very customer centric, rather than being more people centric. So they get a feel for the culture through what they're seeing on your website. So some of the content that we're shooting on our website. So I was very proud, put up a video hub on the website with all the sort of videos we've done, professional ones to sort of personal stuff that we're doing about Brandauer. And all of it wasn't necessarily interesting for a diverse audience that might be looking at it. So we've worked quite hard at that to have a good mix of people that we're recording content for, and different perspectives. So we shot all of our apprentices, and we've got some ladies in there, and we got them in their own words. We didn't give them a script. We got them in their own words to talk about why they work at Brandauer, what's important, what's good, who do they like working with, what department do they work in. And we've improved the balance, I think, of the content. And then the same when you're putting job descriptions together, there's lots of help out there through AI and all sorts of other things, recruitment agencies like yourself that can help you draft a job description that might reach to a more broader audience. So we've done that as well. Has it worked yet? Well, we're on a journey. It's a work in progress for sure. What I will say is, when we do get a woman come and work at Brandauer, particularly on the apprenticeship route, they're the ones that are most likely to leave and go and work at a bigger company, or but they stay in engineering. So we've lost some absolute corking talent as a result of them being a really good engineer, but also being a woman. You're helping out other people's sort of strategy to broaden their workforce out, whether it's Zertec or Rolls-Royce or one of the other even bigger manufacturers in the UK. They take that talent.
We see it a lot that, if we get job roles and we do get female candidates that have been through, say, an apprenticeship like at your business or elsewhere, they get snapped up that quickly. It's just, again, because of those policies where they're trying to increase the gender kind of split or the equity within their businesses. One of the things that and I'd be interested to hear what you found from this independent review, we find that if we write a job specification, as you've mentioned there, you're right, a lot of it is men writing those job specs, and it's a very male written website. So you're right, that impacts. But if we put less, try and think of the right way of putting it, Michael, help me. But it's like the fewer things we write about what you need to do for the job, the more likely it is that you'll get more women apply. As soon as you end up listing, these are the things you can do, and you really start adding more and more and more, it's almost like the Christmas tree. I want the absolute perfect person that can do everything. It seems that fewer women will apply, because the more things that they need to maybe tick a box for, the less likely, whereas compared to men, they'll just be like, okay, that's the role. I can't really be bothered to read all the way to but I'll just apply. And it does seem to be a thing. So when you were doing that independent review, what were the things that you found out as a business owner that maybe surprised you? What were the things you thought, wow, I never even considered that we needed to make those changes to how our business looked?
Two key areas for me. So if we just take the job descriptions first, and then I'll do the website afterwards. For job descriptions, it's exactly what you're saying.
That's good to know.
It's exactly what you're saying. So again, softer language.
Yeah.
Don't be so punchy. You need it to be softer language, particularly if it's a male-dominated environment like engineering and manufacturing. Secondly, absolutely that. So if you're writing a job description, and we're prone to it because we want the perfect candidate, so you might just have two sections, the must-haves and the desirables. But our desirables are as long, if not longer, as the must-haves. So, and absolutely, this lady said to me, if I was applying for this job, I wouldn't apply, because I haven't ticked every single one on the must-haves. Whereas, and I said, well, I'd go for it. And it's so what we've done differently this time, actually recruiting a role at the moment, we've actually distilled the must-haves into absolute core disciplines, if that makes sense, which I think broadly everyone can tick.
Can you give a few examples of what those might be, Rowan? Loosely, so I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it's fine. Simplistically, essentially, we're creating a sort of role that's a mix of HR and systems engineering. And there's only 5 things that I think that person needs to do that job. So for me, number 1 is attention to detail. Number 2 was sort of knowledge of basic HR policies and approaches.
I'm just taking this as a job spec, Mark.
Number 3 was knowledge of systems engineering. Number 4 was approachability. And number 5 was nurturing, mentoring. And those were I'm glad I've remembered those. I've done well.
You did very well, yeah.
But
10
yeah,
points.
those were the 5 core. And when you looked at the job description we'd written, it was probably 30 items, 15 and 15, something like that, across, must-haves and desirables. And we're doing the whole thing on those 5 things. And interestingly, first 4 CVs I've had in for that job are all women. How interesting is that?
Yeah, it is.
Well, it is, and that's the point. I think we were literally saying the same thing the other day. We listened to what Zertec were doing to recruit, and they were talking. There was 25 women in the room, and they were saying exactly what you've been saying, which is just the language puts people off, and even people working within a business, if there's a role that they can apply for, which would be directly above them. They're already almost doing part of the job. Again, the language could put them off applying, and people external to a business could come in rather than them getting an internal promotion because of the language of the job spec.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's a real shame.
The second point was on the website.
Yeah.
And it was stark. We've touched a little bit on this already, but it's a very customer-centric website. We're only looking to talk to our customers. And again, this review we had said that's all very well, and it's probably fine if you're a male applying for a job. Might not be as well, actually. But as a female, she said, I would want to get a feel for the environment I'm working in, the people I'm working with, the values and the culture of the company, which was, to be fair, it was there, but it wasn't easy to find, or it was linked into ticking a box for a customer, not necessarily a prospective employee who might be a woman. So we spent quite a lot of time tweaking the content, having different members of staff on videos and talking about why they work there, more pictures of the environment and the office and different departments, more touchy-feely, much more sort of softer approach to it and easy to find. Go on the website, you can find it, it's there, and you can see you get a feel for the business before you walk through the door.
This episode is brought to you by Nero Pipeline Connections, the go-to supplier for stainless steel tube, fittings, valves and pipeline products across the UK. Whether you're in process, manufacturing or engineering, Nero makes sourcing simple. They've got over 12,000 products in stock, from BSP, fittings to flanges, valves and fasteners, and all are available for next day delivery. With ISO 9001 accreditation and an experienced team, they're built for businesses that can't afford downtime. So check out nero.co.uk to explore their full range. And now, back to the pod. I want to move on to a topic that neither me or you will know much about because it only happened yesterday. But we've been talking a lot. There's been a massive movement for this industrial strategy for the UK. So I looked at the 160-page document last night. I downloaded it, ran it through ChatGPT, and in about a nanosecond, it pulled out the bits that are relevant to steel. Have you had a look at this? And before we maybe dive into that specifically, why do you think it's been so important to bang the drum for this industrial strategy like has been happening on LinkedIn and more widely in engineering for the last couple of years? And what are you hoping to see over the next couple of years to actually help British manufacturers like yourself? I know that's very big, but again...
Yeah, it's fine. So just a couple of things. So I've been fortunate enough, because it is that important, to be working with Make UK to help them lobby for the and it's a very early stage document that's come out yesterday. That 160 pages has come from about 3 years worth of lobbying pre-general election with the previous administration and post-general election with Keir Starmer and his friends. And phenomenal coup, really. And a big shout out to Make UK, really, for achieving it. To get this over the line in the remit and format that it is quite amazing. To get it brought in so early in a parliamentary cycle. So I've been involved in different strands of it. It's been broken into different pillars, essentially, and the bits that I've focused on is the skills side of it because of the stuff we've just discussed, really, obviously. So that skills side of it is something I've been working hard on, but the other elements are as important, if not more so. If we come back to your sort of broader question, why is it important and what do I hope from it? Well, our industry, manufacturing, engineering, has been without any sort of strategy for the best part of 20 years. Well, I don't know about you, but I wouldn't run a business without a strategy. And the problem is, with regular changes to government, or even regular changes of leadership, and let's face it, through the last administration, we had multiple prime ministers, you don't get any traction because nothing ever gets done because there's no plan that you were working to. So longevity of it, the cross-party nature of it, by the fact that it's been developed with a Conservative administration and now implemented under a Labour administration, makes it cross-party. It is not going to change anything overnight. But if we don't focus on the key areas that industry or manufacturing needs for the next 10 years, we'll be no better off. Arguably, we'll be a lot worse off. So for me, I want to see some traction and actually some pull from government and some push from manufacturing that drives this forward over the long term. And it can change. It will change. Things will change. There'll be budget constraints and there'll be this and that. But at least we've got the framework and the pillars that we're all aware of and need to drive forward. So I'm hoping it gets adopted and pushed and continually pushed from here on. Because I fundamentally believe the pillars we've identified, they've been bought off by, I forget how many members that Make UK have got, but it's a national membership organisation.
There's a few knocking around.
Let's say there's 20, 30,000. There's a lot. And everyone is on the same page with this. See, everyone believes, whether they're an SME right up to the blue chip corporates, that this is the right thing to do. And broadly speaking, these are the right areas of focus. And the document was released yesterday that confirms that and starts putting money into some of those sort of key strands.
I don't want to dig too much because, like I say, it's not going to come out till 2027 that it will get rolled out. The devil's in the detail as always. There'll be changes, not necessarily galore. That's probably unfair. When we've been speaking, we spoke to Steve Morley, who you know well, and we're like, right, what's the one thing? And he was energy prices. It looks like they're going to be doing a lot with electric. There's nothing in there for gas, which is a shame for probably some of the foundries and primary industry sectors. But electric, that looks like they're going to really try and help, and that's going to be big for businesses. So on your side, specifically, how much is energy? Was that really right at the top? You said you were more involved with skills, but is energy a factor within your business? And again, is that something that you were, when you looked at this, you were kind of excited about, or was it other areas that specifically for you got you?
I think it was other areas for me. I don't want to sort of talk down, because it's important. Energy is really important, but for us, it's not our biggest challenge.
Yeah.
So to put it in perspective, when energy prices peaked, we moved from spending 100 grand a year on gas and electric combined to about 500,000, which is a big jump. It's a big jump, but we dealt with it like most people did. We put energy surcharges in. We negotiated quite hard with our brokers and providers and all of that. And we're probably settled at about 200,000 a year now. So it has doubled, but it was a peak and it's not our biggest cost. I'm not saying I don't want the support, because absolutely I do. But I think for me, there's two other areas. Skills, perhaps we've talked about, so I'll pick another one. There's an area of focus that they're committing to, which is investment in innovation and R&D. And some significant numbers being pushed into that arena to encourage more of it. If there's one thing this country is world class at in terms of engineering and manufacturing, it's being innovative. We are clever. We are a clever nation. Perhaps we understate that, but we're good at solving problems. We're good at overcoming issues, technical issues, by innovating and reinventing what we do, changing the way we do it, being more efficient, more productive. But for that to continue, alliances between government, academia, SMEs, OEMs is vital. And I can only tell you, in the last sort of 7 or 8 years, it's been an absolute game changer for our business. And long may it continue. That funding is vital for that to create that environment where you can do R&D, can think about solutions of the future in a reasonably safe environment, but working with the people that can help you.
You spoke about when you took over at Brandauer, sorry, not took over, when you joined Brandauer, there were some issues. So it leads in quite nicely. I've highlighted innovation here. That was going to be the next point. So well done. It was like you knew. Talk about some of the pivots that have been made over that, because you've been there nearly, 16 years now as a business. But specifically innovation, because I think sometimes when people hear about innovation, loosely, it can mean so many different things. But again, specifically with your business, and I'd like to get into this open door policy that you've got and how you work collaboratively with other businesses and inviting people in and stuff. But talk about some of the innovation that you've done within your business that's been vital for the success of where the business has gone, if you don't mind. Anything that kind of really stands out, and anything that you're maybe excited about, over the next couple of years?
One of the joys of working and running an SME business is you can change stuff. You're not beholden.
Mike does that daily.
But
it's an idea a minute.
You can try different things all the time, and depends on your sort of definition of what innovation is. Personally, I think it's trying out stuff that's different. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, we've done that before, or it didn't work, or that's never going to work." And all it's being confident enough to do that in everything that you're doing, and it can be the smallest thing. And I'm just trying to think of some examples. This is really cool. So one of the chaps came up to me and said during, I think it was just before COVID, he said, "We've got all these machines, coffee machines and crisp and chocolate machines and stuff." He said, "They don't work, they break all the time." He said, why don't the company invest 500 quid in going to the cash and carry and just buying a load of stuff, and we'll just have an honesty tuck shop. All profits to charity." And I thought, well, that sounds great. Just do it. It was a game changer. Everyone loved it. It sort of self-managed itself. We're doing about £1,000 a year for charity, and we're all paid back. It just self-fulfills. So it's just an honesty pot. We're charging, 20, 30p for a chocolate bar instead of £1.50 down. Yeah. That's innovation for me. It's simple, people innovation, and they appreciate it, and it was a win-win, finding that win-win all the time. Fast forward to the last 3 years, we were based in a Victorian factory, which we moved out of in 1999 into a fabric warehouse, both in Newtown, not far from each other, sort of 300 or 400 meters away. But the layout of our factory broadly hadn't changed since we moved in 99. And yet I got a completely different set of customers, a completely different set of products that we're making. We'd identified a massive investment campaign to improve the way we do our progression press work. And it became almost obvious, but we know why we didn't do it sooner. I don't know. It's probably I take some responsibility for that. It's a big disruption to reel out an entire factory, but that's exactly what we did.
When was this? When did you do this, right?
We finished it about February this year, so it was probably February 23 we started, something like that. And it touched every single element of the business. So we opened a second tool room to move some new tooling out of the business, so that revenue stream was protected, had its own resource. We then recreated our existing tool room, which became a maintenance tool room for the progression tools that we're running, and then we've got 48 presses, and every single press in the factory moved at least once. And I say at least once, we actually had to do that we actually planned to do that because it was like a jigsaw puzzle. We're working within the four walls we've got. We had to move some stuff out of the way temporarily to move this new press into where it needed to go. We then had to move that back to move something over here. It was all planned. That has improved our productivity tenfold. So I've got less people. I haven't made anyone redundant. People have left. We've worked it through. Different programs have come to an end. New ones. So we sort of had 80 people doing 10 million turnover. We now got 64. So we're operating at a much more productive level, more automation in the factory, better flow of materials through the factory. That's innovation. That's probably the latest project we've done, and it's had a huge impact to the way we work. But embedded in that, which is the other bit of innovation, is the people side. So we've had people, when I started, fearful of making a decision, because if they got it wrong, who knows what would happen, to now where that factory relayout was basically conceived by us as directors, but then all of it, the planning, the options, where to place all the presses, the actual layout, mapping of it all, it's all done by the team that were delivering it, all of it. And they come to me they kept saying shortlist. So we went from 6 options to 3 to 2, and they went, well, you got to pick one of these. And I went, no, you pick. Can't go wrong. I'm going to support you all the way. And they picked it, and then they own it. That's a different way of running business and doing business, I think. And it had such an impact. And yeah, a lot of hard work. Bear in mind, we're still delivering, up to £1 million worth of product to customers every month at the same time as moving everything. So it was a juggling act, to say the least. But fundamentally, there's 2 bits of innovation that have massively impacted what we do.
You talk a lot today about it's almost like a recruitment podcast in a way. We talk about bringing in new skills, apprentices, the team on board, engaging with your current work, your current working environment with your colleagues. How do you get everyone on board now? Because obviously, when your tall room manager comes to you and going, look, we're really up against it, we need to bring someone in, and your thing is going, bring in an apprentice. Surely the tour maker's almost like, they want people who are like established. They've worked for other companies in the West Midlands who are established tour makers. How do you get those people on board? Because obviously, from your point of view as the CEO and your other board of directors, there's obviously one, you're passionate about industry, so you want the skill set to come through. Second part of it is obviously the cost element of when you look at especially where salaries are now, they can be, some of them are just outrageous, really, when we see how far they've come within a short period of time. How do you get the key, the department managers on board with what you're trying to do? Because they're the ones equally have got to put their arm around, whatever candidate you choose, and they're the ones who are become the role model of where you're going. This is where you want to be. Has that been challenging at all, or?
Yeah.
Well, it's good to know.
Yeah.
We thought it would be.
It's not easy. The people side of it, that cultural swing and getting people to buy into what you're doing and support it, that's been 10-year labour of love. It's hard, and you just have to keep going at it until eventually it sticks. So I remember the first day that I actually was appointed chief executive officially. I got the whole factory together. I'd prepped a load of stuff that I wanted to go through. That day I tore up the old visions, values, strategy, and I just ground zero, start again.
Was that metaphorically or literally tore it up?
I literally
Did you do it in front of people?
Well, it was useless. You would talk about some of the bits of paper holding this table up, but virtually door wedges or paper weights with the book of vision, values, and they're not vision and values, are they? People are using them for that.
It's hard to tear up a book, that.
And it is.
You tried it?
It is, yeah. I tried to, and I'd done this in the sort of preparation for that big kickoff, and I'd sat down with every single department, and I asked them 3 questions. What's great about Brandauer? As in working at Brandauer, what's its unique selling point? And I think I asked them for one word that describes what's important, and I got them to do it on Post-its, and it was really interesting because, bear in mind, it was quite divided opinion at the time, a lot of negativity, and there was so much commonality that came out. I didn't do them all together; I did them all individually, separately, different people. And I drew it all together on a Venn diagram, and all the stuff that crossed over, I took that. I'm like, that's the stuff that we're going to build the business's values against. And I did all this in a fancy slide deck, pulled it all together, and They looked at me like I was a complete maniac. They looked at me like, oh, here we go again. What on earth is he doing? This is like, yeah. But I've not dropped it. I've not dropped it. We have followed that, and it's still today. It's the same. We call it the precision culture is what we call it, because that's what's in our heart. That's everything we do is about fine, tiny, precise stamped components by the billions. And still do it today. And it took the best part of 7 years before it started sticking. And I can tell you can tell when it starts sticking is because people start making their own decisions. People start seeing the benefit of, if I do take on an apprentice and mentor them and look after them and nurture them, they add huge value very quickly. It's making an impact to what I'm doing. And so on and so, and it goes from then. You start seeing that sticking, and then they start making decisions on how you're going to lay the factory out. And it's like, wow, we've made, we're on the journey. And then all of a sudden, you start making more money. But, it comes through, shows on your bottom line. And it's the most difficult one to measure in terms of pound notes, but it's probably the most important one to do. You can make yourself more productive. You can negotiate better prices with your suppliers and or your customers. And you can, those two things, you can measure and say, that's how much I've saved, or that's how much more I've got. But get the people bit right. How do you, pound notes wise, I can measure it in number of heads, but that don't happen very quickly. I can measure it in added value per employee or something like that. It's a feel. And it's a feel that you get when you come in the factory and decisions are getting made and they're not coming to you. And don't get me wrong, there's stuff that comes to me that's a problem and we have to resolve that together. But that's our job. But fundamentally, that feel takes a long time to do.
Why are you so passionate about it for? Because
where's that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah, why do you care?
It's really interesting. More recently, as I get older, you start reflecting on it, because there's a lot of people I'm friends with and they're either talking about wanting to get out or retire or wind down or do less. And I'm like, my wife tells me if I ever retire, she'll go absolutely insane because I'll have nothing to do. So and she's absolutely right. And I love it.
You got a lot of things to retire from. You've got about 9 jobs, haven't you? We listed him out at the start. It said on ChatGPT, it said, oh, he's a very good guest. He does a lot. That's what it said.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So why am I so passionate about it? I think it's because I enjoy it. I enjoy it. And I love seeing an impact of doing something different or resolving a problem. And as I said, Brandauer make some pretty fantastic stuff. But if I show you a piece of metal, you'll think, But when you start saying, well, that was a pen nib that was made 1872, or that's a razor that we fundamentally make that work, and they can make every single element of a gent's razor except the one bit we make. Or so the little hub on a floppy disk or a mini disc, Brandauer made those.
There's a big market for them nowadays. People love a mini disc.
Well, there you go, you see. Well,
they're coming back like vinyl.
Yeah. Or a plumbing fitting.
Yeah.
It's just a selection of stuff. We don't make those individual things.
What do you make it? Say that plumbing fitting there.
Yeah.
What are you making?
You see the teeth? There's some teeth inside that plumbing fitting.
Yeah. That's like is that a press fit or a push fit one, or one of those electric?
This is a permanent push fit. So you push the pipe in, and then that's actually swaged down to make it a permanent fit. So this is more of an industrial application.
Yeah.
But we do the more domestic push fits that literally you just do what it says. You push it in and that's it.
Because a lot of it's gone plastic, hasn't it? We see all that kind of speed. Like there's loads of different brands, isn't there?
There are. So you've got Hip 2O, we've got Polypipe, there's loads, and we supply them all. We're the preferred choice for what we call a grab ring, which is the stainless steel component that has the teeth on it. It's a bit like a washer with teeth on the inside.
And because I think when you look at, say, permanent pipe work, I look at it more with like nominal bore pipes and things that stay in situ for a long time. But how do you make sure that the quality of them is consistently high so you don't get defects? Because I can imagine if you get one, it can be quite costly for people. So how are you making sure that those are that good, and that you don't lose those jobs? Because I'm guessing you're doing a lot of them.
Absolutely. So to put it in perspective, across our 6 customers, we're probably doing somewhere between 10 and 12 million grab rings a month. It's a lot of grab rings. And they look deceivingly easy to make. Well, they are easy if you're making 1 or 2, but when you're churning them out at 10 million, you're bang on in saying how do you make sure the quality's right. And it's basically through the automated process that we've got. Minimal human intervention. You feed stainless steel in one side. The sort of 15 and 22 millimeter sizes are the higher volume ones. Those ones, they're running out at sort of 1,500 parts a minute. So it's buying from the right sources. It's having the right automation and pokey built into that automation to make sure the dimensionals are right. It's then running at the right speeds, the right quality. If you don't have the right stamping cutting clearances, you can end up with burr. Again, it's a big no-no with burr. Then, of course, you cover them in oil and lubricant to do the stamping process because it's a really hard metal, stainless. And then you've got to degrease them. You've got to get that oil off. So it's the cleaning process that we follow to actually remove the grease, and then packing them in the right boxes that are then rotated and are clean to go to the customer. It's in every stage of it. It's in that detail. We learn over numerous sort of cycles of development how to do it, and each time we go through a cycle of development, we make it better. Whether that's faster, quicker, cleaner. We innovate. We're talking about innovation earlier on. We innovate that process, and our customers sort of love that, and we keep getting invented onto their new programs as they're redeveloping their next gen of push fit plumbing fittings. We get early stage involvement with that to take cost out through reducing, improving material utilization or different grades of materials or running faster or different levels of automation. And each time we just get better and better at it. So yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, and it's constant learning. But we're now with stainless steel. We're one of the few that can stamp stainless steel at high speed. And from that, we start getting spin-offs. That's why we're now doing products for gents razors.
And what do you do with them? What is it that you're doing with those?
So if you look on a gents razor, you see on here, you can very easily see the blades.
Yeah.
Those blades have got 6 or 7 black dots across the face of them, if you look closely.
Similar.
Those black dots are basically a spot weld, and they're spot welded onto a frame or a cage that sits underneath. It's that we do. That cage sets the angles of the blades. It gives the head of the razor its integrity because it's generally overmolded in plastic. So it gives it something to overmold onto. It's like a skeleton. It's like a skeleton, I suppose, is what I call it. But they're very, very difficult to make. They're 0.15 thick stainless steel. And they're hard, as in their material properties are very hard. And they want roughly 60 to 120 million a year of those. At high precision. Get the blade out by more than half a degree, and it worst case it'll cut a face. Best case it'll give you a poor shaving performance. The angle of blade is absolutely fundamental to quality of that particular razor.
I didn't know that Wilkinson sword, not that they necessarily are, I didn't know that they actually made swords. I know it's so obvious because it's in the name, but I went to a wedding and someone got a sword out and they said, oh, it's a Wilkinson. And I was like, I never heard of it. He goes, Wilkinson sword. I went, like the light bulb moment. I was
Absolutely.
like, right. They diversified because people don't generally buy swords anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's one.
Tell me.
Interesting bit of local history as well. So you've heard of the Peaky Blinders?
Yep.
We have, yeah.
Who hasn't?
They've done a great rebrand of Birmingham because we were considerably richer than that for like forever. So
as I say,
I've done as a result, really.
Definitely. And interestingly, side point, our Eastern European customers are bigger fans of the Peaky Blinders than anyone else in the world. Unbelievable. We've got a lot of customers in Eastern Europe, and they all go on about Peaky Blinders from Birmingham, Peaky Blinders from all the time. Anyway, I digress. So the razor blades that the Peaky Blinders have in their hats, they were made by and still are, by a company called Lord International. And there's no secret, because this is just gone live with a load of stuff out there. We've just done a joint case study and PR launch for Lord International, who are our newest customer based in Egypt. And they are manufacturing a new, I suppose, more recyclable gents razor, disposable razor. So there's a lot less plastic in this particular product. So we are now supplying razors for Lord International. And that's sale all the way to Egypt. So it's similar product to the one I've just described for this other customer on the table. And this is how Brandauer reinvents itself. We start off making grab rings for plumbing fittings. We start out with one customer making a frame going into a gents razor, and we're now making components for Lord International in Egypt. Similar. So we just grow and diversify from that respect.
How does the passion come for people? Obviously, a lot of what you do in your organisation is about bringing new people in. But also, if you look at some of the other roles that you do for Make UK, Birmingham University as well. So again, that's very people-centric, isn't it? Of kind of, but where does that side of come from? Because loads of people you speak to say the job would be easy if it wasn't the people. People are our biggest headache. Where speaking to you today, you've got such a passion for giving people an opportunity. You're not even bothered if they leave you at the end of it. It's almost like, if they're going around, they're going to have a great career somewhere else. You're almost applauding it. It's like, where does that come from? Is that from like maybe someone who inspired you when you were younger in your career? Or?
I think you do. The people you learn from are the ones that gave you the time to give you that learning. So, my design and technology teacher, I can remember him today, it's a chap called Mike Judge. He was one of the few teachers that gave me time and helped me an awful lot. And actually, he was the one that told me you should be an engineer. It's one of the many voices that were saying that. And I think they sort of people make an impression on you. So your point about, people are your biggest headache. They are. I'll say it myself. It's a challenge. It's easier to run a factory full of machines than it is to run a factory full of people. However, machines don't work without people. And when my biggest successes in my career have come from when I surround myself with great people, preferably of much cleverer and brighter than I am. And it works. So without people, we would not be making products. And if you're going to do it, let's find some great talent and nurture them and bring them through the business. It's easier to mold people, as early stage in their career than perhaps it is to bring someone in. We've tried poaching people and headhunting people and this sort of thing. It can work, but it's not great. It's a short-term fix to a much longer-term problem, which is why I've tried to get more engagement and more passion for nurturing the younger talent, to a point where sometimes I'm told I'm being ageist, but it's like, no, not at all. But it's like, we won't have a business unless we do this, so none of us will have jobs. So we've got to be passionate about giving those young people the opportunity and trying to keep them on the straight and narrow and trying to keep them at Brandauer.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a recruitment agency operating in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. With a large, engaged network of candidates and clients, we help businesses make great hires in sales, operational, technical, quality and managerial roles, as well as assisting people in their careers by matching their unique skills and aspirations to businesses that are hiring. Having worked with more than 200 niche businesses since 2019, Compton Group have become the go-to recruitment partner for many of our industry's leading names. So talk to us about your next career move or let us work with you on your business's next hire. Compton Group, recruitment engineered for metal and manufacturing.
One of the things we spoke about earlier on in the podcast was the press side of things of manufacturing. And even with metals, when we look at in the last few months, we've had British Steel. That was obviously well publicised when those all going into Parliament on the Saturday to kind of discuss it. So then within manufacturing, we constantly, even if someone's not in manufacturing, they know when Jaguar Land Rover are making redundancies, they know when JCB are. It makes, and news, shall we say, where you could have a business like yourselves, say you employ 100 people, if you let 30 people go, it wouldn't get in the Birmingham Mail, if you like. How do we kind of work with that as a sector to kind of get the children, inspire them from when they're leaving school, especially if parents are involved? Obviously, that's part of your recruitment process. So obviously, if they're nervous about it, how do you think we can try and change it and make it not necessarily sexier, but more attractive, that people don't see it as an industry that you go to and then you're out of it, I suppose?
There's tons of ways to do it, and we're involved with lots. There's a couple I can think of that I'll talk about, but what winds me up is we know that's the problem. And from 15 years at Brandauer, from the very early days, every single person in my MD's network was moaning about, engineering and the quality of talent coming through is rubbish and da-da-da. And it's like, well, rather than moan about it, let's do something about it. So a couple of initiatives that I'm really proud of. So there's a small network of businesses that the previous Brandauer MD set up called the Manufacturing Assembly Network, MAN Group, which isn't the best name after what we spoke about earlier on. But it's all SMEs. There's 10 or 11
It is the letters, though.
It is. No, it is. It is. And I always do the acronym after Anyway, but there's 10 of us now. We're all sort of ranging from £1 million turnover to, I think the biggest is about 25-30 million. And we've done all sorts of stuff. It's a best practice sharing network, meeting once a month. We all stick some money in the pot and we do different things. More recently, and it wasn't my brainchild, it was one of the other members' ideas to come up with a STEM engagement event that we do annually. And we call it the MAN Group Design and Make Day or competition, Design and Make competition. It's actually happening next week, so it's very topical. Each member initially went to schools in their local area and asked them to put in a team of their best students to come for one day competition, blind brief, so they don't know what they're coming to do. They turn up, they get a box of balsa wood and sellotape and glue and springs and all that sort of stuff, and they're told to make a rocket that will be fired on this thing. It's got to go that high through there, through this target, and do that. And of course, they straight out start making it, and it fails or it breaks. So they get, throughout the day, they get some testing. They can get to redevelop, they can test again, and then they go into a competition where all the schools from all the regions compete against each other, and we usually get sponsorship and prizes and stuff like that for the schools or the kids or both. Well, we started out with 8 schools 5 years ago. Next week's it'll be 35 schools, and we're doing it at Warwick University, and we're running out of space there. It is the most fantastic event, and we now have rebookings every year from not getting engagement from the schools at all. Literally having to make my kids' school. I went there and I went to a parents' evening. I said, no one's responded. There's this event, and I think it'll be really useful for your kids. And they were like, oh, really? Sorry. And they come every year. Have done those sort of things, but it costs money. It's 25 grand. We all put some money in to do it for the day. It's finding sponsorship. Why aren't the banks getting behind this? Why aren't the bigger employers in the region?
You need a rebrand from MAN.
Oh yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it
You'll
is that.
find people funded.
The other initiative, which is already out there, there's STEM ambassadors in the region, which are generally a little bit of government funding, but again, they're usually charitable funding. And we stick some money in a STEM engagement pot every year that allows for school visits and promotion of manufacturing as a career, all of that sort of stuff. It's those things that more people have got to do because they love it. The kids absolutely thrive on it, and it's the best thing to see happening. Falling in love with manufacturing engineering in one day. Done.
I've got some quick fire questions for you. We did this. Did we do it with Stephen?
Yeah, just for Stephen, yeah.
He was terrible. He wasn't. He wasn't. He was worse than terrible.
Too long answers, Joe.
He was like, "Oh, I don't know about this." So I wrote some of Stephen's ones myself. So I haven't written any of these. So if they're terrible,
Okay.
blame AI. So, you ready?
Yeah. Can I pass on some as well?
No.
Oh,
You've
gotta
you've
go
to
with
have
them
a go.
all.
You just got to have a go.
Gotta have a
Yeah.
go, right.
Most underrated role in manufacturing.
Oh.
This is the quick fire round.
I
Rowan.
know. Do you know what? It's probably sales ledger because they got to chase the ones that
Chase
aren't
debt.
paying, and it's a difficult job to do, and it makes a massive difference to whether you can operate or not.
Question 2. What's one thing every manufacturing MD should do more of?
Invest in young people, talent. We've spent the last hour talking about it, and honestly, everyone should embrace it and promote the benefits and the importance of manufacturing to this country and future talent that come and work in it.
Is there a policy or something you have to do as a business that maybe the government could change that you'd immediately scrap? What's one of those real bugbears for you as a business owner?
Oh, I have to be a bit careful with this. I think when you compare to our competitors, health and safety, I say that very cautiously. I'm not talking about operating in an unsafe way, but some of the stuff that we have to do for competent people, setters, for example, I have to have fail-safes and deadlocks and further fail-safes, which make it almost impossible to do a feed-through easily when we're resetting a press. Just have a bit of common sense applied to it. Because we've got to get to a point, and I say it because I go to Germany or anywhere else in Europe, and if you're silly enough to stick your finger in a press when it's running, tough luck. And it is as simple as that. I don't want to dilute it because I do see the importance of it, but for me, I think that's I would dilute some of the stuff we're being asked to do.
Yeah, I agree. We was on a plant the other week, and what they had to do, it was just stupid. And it's like every time they get audited or whatever, it's almost like they can't come and say it's perfect. So it's like change that it's like that little bit instead of just
change
going,
for the sake of
yeah,
change.
change for the sake. It's almost like I've got to pick a fault because I can't say it's perfect.
Finally, what do you think people still misunderstand about manufacturing?
I think people, and again, it's demonstrated in some of the media stuff that you do. I think people see it as a low-paid, dirty, poor environment with poor work ethics. And I say we had BBC film at our factory, and they want sparks flying off a grinder, or they want a screwdriver, or they want old-fashioned engineering. I'm cutting carbide to, tolerances of around a micron. A human hair is 35, 40 microns thick. We're splitting the atom. They don't want to see that. They want to see a bloody hammer and a...
I mean, you can't say that technically.
Yeah, true, you can't. But we've done a whole thing about what is a micron and explaining what it is to promote our business. So I think it's misunderstood, it's misrepresented. And I think that's as important for, people already in the industry to new people coming into it. It is, you go to a good company, it's state of the art and it's exciting and you're working on multitude of different sectors and products and all of that. That very rarely gets...
The headlines. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing about the pay because I think the sector is we've seen a growth over the last few years from when we set the business up to what certain roles are to what they are now. A lot of that's through inflation. Some of that is through COVID where there's a skill demand which creates an increase. But I think where the sector's competing against is people get, after a certain time, they get bored of doing the same position. They want to try something new. And that's where now industries are looking at training people who were really well paid in manufacturing and paying them the same salary to learn something new. Where because we're in a skilled environment, we can't do it the other way. So our talent pool is so small and it's shrinking and trying to bring new people in. But I do think when we look at what's going on with other sectors, and that's necessarily on base salaries, but it's the bonuses. That bit is where we're getting left behind slightly, because what we're seeing, where we can speak to people, especially in the commercial capacity, but what some of them are picking up, it's frightening really when you think of, but that's probably because we've been in a period of time where wages are gonna electric, rent, wages. It's like, especially for SMEs, it's so hard when it's tough to try and compete. Equally, there's probably not a better place to work in an SME business when you're making loads of money, because it's a great environment. But I think it is challenging to kind of try and keep the best talent in our sector, especially from a commercial point, because there's almost new industries being created, isn't there?
Yeah.
And those, when they're coming in, they've got backings of big financial arms, and they can just woo people really quick. And it's a real challenge.
Yeah, we've struggled to sort of maintain some differential, but that's got to be what you've got to try and do. And we work bloody hard at it and try within what we can afford. And I always say this to the guys: if it's good, we'll pay above the going rate for pay rises and stuff like that. Sadly, if it's bad, we've got to work together on it to make it better. So the other thing is, an SME, you are competing with the big boys who are, some of these guys like Amazon and stuff like that. I remember when I was looking at, it was just after COVID, when there was a shortage of lorry drivers, the signing on fees that they were offering to people to come back to work, and just not going to compete with that. It's just never going to do it. So I can relate to the sort of bonuses and the different things, but what we just got to split it and try and present yourself in the best way as you can. So we do an annual survey of our pay for every job role in the business, and we use the data that Make UK do, which is basically built on a national survey. So you do it. If you do it, you get the data back, which gives you the national sort of outlook on who's getting paid how much and for what role. It's a really good piece of work, and it's really helpful because you can look at it from different perspectives, nationally, regionally, sectorially. They split it out, so you've got different pay ranges, and it helps you to make sure there's no gaps coming. And very often you'll see it on some of the key roles where you've seen gaps. You're not paying enough, or you're perhaps not giving them enough of a pay rise previous year to overcome those gaps. That's a fundamental part of how we go about doing, making decisions on how much to pay, and obviously it's aligned against what we think we're going to do in terms of performance the following year. But there's all the other little items. Working at an SME, it is nice. You get a good environment, it's a good working culture. All of those things, I guarantee you don't get at some of the other companies that friends and family work at. I'm not going to name any, but there's places that aren't have that same sort of no, definitely not. And then it's all the little other additions. It's doing something at Christmas. We take all the staff to the Birmingham Hippodrome for the panto. When that idea first came up, again, they all looked at me like I was a lunatic. But now it's locked in the diary, and they want it. They do it every year. So we get 4 tickets for every member of staff, and we take them all there, and that's appreciated. It's the little things, and very often those little things, including a pat on the back. People very rarely got a pat on the back 15 years ago at Brandauer, and they're much appreciated as well. But you've got to keep going. You've got to keep going, because the competition, like you rightly say, is always there, nipping at your heels to try and and be slightly better, or pinch them for an extra 50p, £1 an hour, or whatever it is.
Yeah, well, that's definitely from the shop floor point of view. It's like, one of the biggest things we've seen with people is just going to work at, say, a supermarket, doing their food delivery, vans drop off, the money they're getting, discount on food shops, everything. It's a challenge, and that, but that's all we can do, isn't it? I think it's interesting how you engage with the business with a team, and it's almost like the way you come across there, it's like a really big part of what you're doing, and that you're aware of, because most companies,
Sometimes they get the culture, don't they?
well, I think that, but I also think as people, we can all beat each other up at certain times. And I think after a while, people who own businesses or in senior positions get that worn down with it, where it always feels like got to keep giving, and they never look at what they're getting back. It's almost like you only notice that bit and you don't realise that. And I think...
Do you know what? It's really interesting that this is something that it does get you down. Definitely it gets you down, because it's like, it's all the time. Whether it's, actually it's not my employees. It's usually my customers or my suppliers, and they're just, they want more, they want it quicker, they want it for less, they want it, it's the old adage. They want it for half the price and they want it yesterday. It's always the ask. And I understand that, and I respect him for it, but you do get lost. And one of the things that we've done, and I was encouraged to go for a Royal Award, and we went in 2019 for the Queen's Award. And at the time I looked, and it was my chairman that said to me, we should go for this. And I looked. He wanted me to go for, there's 4 categories, and he wanted me to go for social mobility and put the apprenticeship scheme in there. I didn't think our story was quite strong enough. But talk about export, from pen nibs to particle physics and all the other stuff we're involved with, to 27 countries and 70% export, all of that stuff. I thought, well, that's a big story. And I entered into this process, which is, it's arduous. It's quite an undertaking to go for a Royal Award. And but what it did make me realise is how much we've done historically as a business in the last 10 years as a team. It's a great thing to reflect and look back, and it's even better when you win it. So it's great. And then we've just gone again for the Innovation Award, and we won that last year, around how we make our high-speed progression tooling. And again, the same thing. It's been a short period of time, only 5 years since the last one, but I check in again, and it's like, whoa, look at what we've done in 5 years. And that makes you reflect. And actually, yeah, we would be nothing without our employees. I would be nothing without my suppliers or my customers. But with us all working broadly, pulling in the same direction, look at the success. Look at what can be done. Yeah, it is really important to reflect as a leader, definitely. And for me, doing an award like that is something I'd highly recommend others to do, because it's that you take a pulse. You just take your pulse at the right time and look and think, wow, we've done a lot. And then we go again, next 5 years, what we're going to do next. So yeah, definitely important to reflect.
Thank you for sticking around till the end of the podcast. To help this channel grow, if you could like it, share it with any of your colleagues or people who are in the metals or engineering or manufacturing sectors, that would be great. Also, you might feel like you're the perfect guest for our podcast to tell your story of your career, or maybe there's someone in your network who you think would be great for us to interview. If you want to get in contact with myself or Peter Comerford, that would be great. We'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors, Steelby, as well as Nero Pipeline. Thanks for watching.